right, y'all. Welcome back to another installment of the CarefreeBlackNerd Suite. This installment is the Scream Suite. I left you with some blood curdling screams last year. I'm coming to you now with some slasher and some horror shit. This is the first installment of a six-part series. This is the Scream Suite or the Horror Suite. And I'm your host, Rhayne Coleman. And for this very special occasion, this inaugural episode, I have someone with me, a voice you should be all too familiar with. If not, check the resume and get back with me. Who do I have on the mic with me today?
Thank you for such a great introduction. I am John Salvatore. I am over the moon to be here. Thank you. Like I always say, Mama, I have made it. I have arrived. I am on the Carefree Black Nerd podcast. What up? What's up?
Man, thank you for accepting the invite. This is okay. So for starters, we're going to be discussing Scream.
Mhm.
If you don't know, now you know, niggas. So we're going to discuss Scream, the first film, and give some takes, some thoughts, some opinions. All this is done in service to Scream 6. And so you're going to check back in with me every week. May have another guest, maybe solo. John may return. You never know. But
I
check back
hope
in every
so.
week.
Scream 2 is probably one of my favorite in the franchise. So
Okay,
I
good,
definitely
good.
would love to come back.
All right, so put that on the calendar. And so we're going to discuss Scream, and this is more of a conversation. I encourage everyone out there to go and watch Screams 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and prepare for Scream 6. And we're going to get started. Use that hashtag Scream Suite. SCREAMSUITE. That will be in the show notes. And I'll start off with a little housekeeping with Scream. Is a 1996 American slasher film. This was directed by Wes Craven and written by Kevin Williamson. Now, this film starred none other than Neve Campbell, David Arquette, Courtney Cox, Matthew Lillard, Rose McGowan, Skeet Ulrich, Jamie Kennedy, and Drew Barrymore. Now, let's pause right here. Drew,
Yeah.
that's my girl. And I guess you could say starring because it took about, for that first opening scene, that was about 10, anywhere from 10 to 13 minutes. So,
right.
But I was like, that's, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that opening with Drew?
Okay, so as far as like the billing of the cast,
Well, that for sure. Yes.
um, so okay, let's go back. This
Okay.
is 1996.
Yes.
Drew Barrymore is in her prime,
Mm-hmm.
and she could do whatever project she wanted.
Yep.
And from my understanding and all of the trivia from Internet Movie Database, she was originally offered the role of Sidney Prescott, but had to turn it down for whatever reason. And she thought, hey, let's have me in the opening scene, and it's not, no one's going to think I'm going to die in a horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really clever, and I thought it was really smart. I mean, I would give. I mean, I would give her top billing. Like, I wouldn't have given her, of course, like top 3. But one of those things where it's a cast, and you want to say, and usually the person that's at the end when it's like and is usually a bigger star or as powerful as the lead, but may not have such a great role on the show.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. So then let's piggyback off that. How do you feel about the whatever universe that is where she was Sydney? Do you think that would have made for a better film?
That's a good question. If Drew was Sydney, I don't want to downplay Drew's talent. I think Scream would have been either a one and done,
okay,
or it would have fallen in the anthology route. I don't think Drew would have been someone that would have gone on to do sequels because she was
Mhm.
doing like during that time, during the
Yeah.
whole when Scream was at its peak from like 96 up until 2000, 2001, Drew
Mhm.
Barrymore was pretty much everywhere. So
Yeah.
I just couldn't see her committing to doing um, a gaggle of, you know, sequels. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it would have had the same cultural impact. I think things happen for a reason,
Right, right.
and her doing that opening scene kind of made it the thing that carried on to the franchise for the most part,
Mhm.
that you have a larger star partaking in the film and not necessarily, you know, having an expanded part, but their star power and pairing that with the opening kill is, you know, it held up for the most part, definitely for part two.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say part three, no, because at that time, nobody fucking. This is well before she was Lily Vanderwoodson. Like
Mhm.
I remember that actress from a short stint on Melrose Place, and then
Mm.
killing Cotton. I don't say Colin Cotton. It was just like, it didn't.
Yeah.
But then Scream Three is its own box of worms, can of worms, and then them playing it up for part four,
Mhm.
it kind of poked and made fun of it because, from my understanding, and I don't know how true this is, I think I read it somewhere, so it doesn't, we'll take that with a grain of salt, that Kristen Stewart was supposed to be the opening kill for Scream 4.
Okay.
And during that time, that was like at the height of Twilight. So that would have been a major thing.
Mhm.
But, you know, for the most part, Drew kind of set that in motion for the franchise for one, the opening scene being,
Mhm.
you know, pretty brutal. And then
Yes.
two, having such a large star in that scene for the most part.
Absolutely. And with that being said, I do think that Drew once set the tone, had that star power that put your butts in seats,
Mm-hmm.
and truly you can separate her entire appearance and have it be its own thing. Like if this was released as a web short,
Yeah.
that's one and done. Like, yeah, you might say, "Oh, well, who's the killer?" But like, as far as the beginning, middle, and end, this
Right.
is what is going to lead to this, and that. Like, I think she did a phenomenal job. Her and that wig were working overtime, and I was for, I was for it. Put that blonde wig on and shake that Maserati. She she was not playing, but I truly I enjoyed it because it almost felt like almost like a book. I wasn't particularly fond of horror back in the day.
I was
Um
not either.
look, but this franchise, wow, I would have been like a child. And but with this, it didn't bother me in the way that like a Candyman or a Freddy Krueger would have.
Right.
And I wonder if it's because intellectually I see there's nothing supernatural about it, like me being a child. I wonder
Yeah.
if that's it. But
Right. So I'm glad that you brought that up because I think I've had this conversation with before. I'm not necessarily someone that likes horror, especially based in like supernatural,
mhm,
that space. To me, this was like kind of like a mystery
mhm,
suspense
yeah,
thriller, but it's a slasher. And
mhm,
I want to say, because when the original Scream came out, I was 13.
mhm,
And I remember like being, I wasn't scared of the previews. Of course, no one was taking me to the theaters to see it because it was rated R, and they
right,
really
right,
mandated that back in the 90s.
mhm,
I want to say it wouldn't be until it's funny because I snuck to see Scream 2 in theaters because this is when they used to re-release movies.
mhm,
I remember I went to it was I want to say it was the beginning of the re-release of Scream 2
mhm,
that I actually rented or had my mom and dad rent Scream and we watched it together.
yeah,
And then I actually saw Scream 2 first and then I saw Scream 1, but I was
okay,
familiar with Scream 1 at the time. But yeah.
Okay, okay. Ooh, so even with the Scream one, when you said you saw that after two, how did you see it? Was it was it just y'all rented it and that was that, and like you watched it over and over the blockbuster days, or was it like I rented it and I saw it in theater, or how did you?
So it had already been out of theaters because the turnaround from Scream 2 coming out when Scream 1 came out, I don't even think was a full calendar year. So I remember seeing Scream 2 in the theaters, and then we rented Scream 1. And then I want to say I rented it, or I had them run it again for me at a later time. And I would watch it, semi regularly at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I want to say, like, this is dating me, but whatever. DVDs had become
Mm,
all the rage just a few years later. So by
okay.
the time, Scream 3 had come out,
Mm-hmm.
DVDs were really starting to ramp up. And
Yeah,
I remember getting Scream on DVD.
bruh.
And yeah, I remember watching it a few times. I want to say in the beginning, those first few years, I think I watched it once in the summer, and then I will
Mm-hmm.
watch it around Halloween because I'm not doing a lot
Okay.
of other horror movies. So yeah, but yeah, that was me taking it in, and then of course when it comes on, it'll come on like network television or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'll always try to catch it.
Right, right.
I want to say the most recent time I've seen Scream, this was probably the weekend of Halloween. I was in the gym and
Mm-hmm.
they had Scream on VH1 and I watched it. And then of course,
Okay.
the clips come up on Twitter.
Right, right.
Um, I will watch a clip from Scream in a minute. Like
Mm-hmm.
I watched the Casey Becker, the iconic Casey Becker opening scene.
Mm-hmm.
I'll watch that a few times a year.
Okay. Yeah, that's I don't know. It's such a it's one of those things where you don't really know, you being the audience and even the creator, what you have right away. Because this is one of those movies. Well, cult classic movies are like, I don't think you can. There may be a formula, but I don't think you can truly plan. Like
You can't.
Mean Girls was good, but for that to be the cult classic that it is, versus like Jawbreaker. Not that Jawbreaker isn't, because I think it's good. But like if you ask a random person, I think they might mention Mean Girls over Jawbreaker.
I think they
But
will.
and maybe, but what I'm saying is like when they made Scream, it's like it was good. It was out there. It was a critique on a critique and an exploration, a satire, a satirical look at slasher
Yes.
films, and that's good. But it's like, bruh, this is the one franchise that for me, I don't really have any issues with it continuing. Unlike a Fast and Furious 32, Saw
Ooh,
61, like with
talk
this, I'm
about
like,
it.
I I mean, it's not without its faults, but I do like the franchise and the way that they kind of remix things towards the fifth one, or the in the fifth one. It's like,
Right.
okay, they're elevating this franchise, and I love it. I love it. Um, so this movie was released on December 20th. It follows high school student Sydney Prescott, played by Neve Campbell, and her group of friends in the fictional town of Woodsboro, California, who became the targets of a mysterious killer in a Halloween costume known as Ghostface. The film satirizes the cliches of slasher genres popularized in films such as Halloween, 1978, Friday the 13th in 1980, and Craven's own Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984. Scream was considered unique at the time of its release for featuring characters aware of real world horror films who openly discussed the cliches that the film attempted to subvert. Two things. One, I know that things are quote unquote kids, but everybody in this movie to me was 40 years old. I was like, because I've watched them in so many things since then. I'm like, this
Right.
niggas is grown. So I understood that they're kids in this movie, but like Nev Campbell and Courtney Cox, I wonder how far apart in age they truly are.
Right. Because it wasn't this thing where Courtney looked considerably older than Nev. It was
Mm-hmm.
like, y'all are at max 3 years apart.
Yeah, y'all was in high school together.
Even Dewey, like Dewey is supposed to be like a whole deputy. I mean,
Yeah,
granted, he could be a deputy at maybe 18, 19.
something like that.
He didn't look that much older than Tatum, who was supposed to be his younger sister, and he didn't
Yeah.
look much older than the rest of the cast, which is like, okay.
Okay, so my other thing is the inclusion of other horror films
Mhm.
in the movie to me was golden.
Agreed.
I think that's the one thing out of the entire franchise, especially this first film, that gave its way to um elevating it, making it something different. Because even despite all the camp in the movie,
Mhm.
when you have a character who is like providing these rules for you in a way that is not vampires are scared of the sunlight and the stake through the heart will kill them. Like this is real where it did double duty of giving you the viewer who may not be familiar with all these horror
Right.
movie tropes. It gave you a play-by-play of what's what, but then it also did it for the folks in continuity in the film. It just, I I feel as if what's the nigga name? Rudy? What's that
Who?
nigga?
Randy?
Seth Randy. God damn. I absolutely like I liked him. I feel like I liked him when I first watched it, but it was like, oh, he's nice. But watching it again as an adult and like sitting down and making notes and analyzing what is presented, I absolutely loved his character.
Right.
I'm a fan. Um yeah, I'm a fan. So that's that. Um with Scream 1, tell me, do you have a favorite kill?
Do I have a favorite kill? I do.
Okay, who's it?
Drew Barrymore is my favorite kill in Scream
Ooh,
1. Like,
okay.
when I think about the kills, I looking back, I feel like there weren't a lot of kills
Mm-hmm.
in Scream 1. Um, I think a lot of people want to go with the Tatum scene. To me,
I,
I remember being a fresh teen watching that, and I'm like, that's not realistic. Like, to me, of course, I mean, for
yeah.
this to be rooted in realism,
Mm-hmm.
it was like, really, because everybody knows that the garage door is just gonna go up. It's not gonna let you be, be in a dog door and go up. It would just stop and it would come
Mm-hmm.
right back down. So I didn't think that was interesting. Now,
Yeah.
if it would have like just came, even if it would have came down and smashed her in the head, she wouldn't have probably died. She probably would have just been in a coma
Yeah.
or something. But yeah, definitely Casey, because let me tell you this, Drew was acting.
Listen.
He was like that Caucasian woman was
Listen.
terrified. Like,
Look.
very much, I need to lock my doors because Darnell is walking past my
Yeah.
Mercedes. She was terrified. And
Mm-hmm.
then the fact that she put up a little bit of a fight. Like,
Mm-hmm.
she
Mm-hmm.
did.
Yeah.
Just it was like you almost made it, but you
That.
kind of didn't, because if they wouldn't have got you that night, bitch, they would have got you another night. Like,
No,
you weren't
truly.
off the hook altogether. You probably would have delayed your murder by a few days or a few hours, but they was gonna get you. But in that moment, you almost
Mm-hmm.
made it. You almost
Yeah.
made it.
That I want to say this, she's probably mine too,
Right.
but I would like to go with Billy just because I'm satisfied it happened. But no, that I say either her. No, because I will say I hated Tatum's. I hated it. I
Right.
hated that scene. Was the one that for me was the most questionable out of the entire sequence of scenes in the movie. I was like, bruh, you could have broke her arms. You like, there's so many things you could have done.
Right.
That doggy door shit like that. I don't know. And then for all those, I just feel like no matter how loud the music is, a garage. I don't know. I felt it took me out of the movie. I'll say that.
It was
Um,
like, okay.
Yeah, so I may have to go with Drew's as well. Um, yeah, I do because I do, like you said, I think she was acting, and I like something about that wig, something about this whole her that role, that scene has solidified itself in like the public consciousness as you see Drew in that wig, you thinking of Scream. Like that, I think even more
Automatically.
so than Nev Campbell. Um, and so again, I feel like you can separate that scene on its own, upload it to YouTube, and call it One Terrible Night, and it would do numbers on its own. So
Right.
I'd have to go with that one as well. Mm-mm-mm. Drew, you did that, sis. You did that. Um, So, with the favorite kill, do you have a favorite character out of episode one, out of the first movie?
Favorite character. Tatum, where I found, maybe I found fault in her death scene
Mm,
because I really like the character. Now, I'm not a fan of Rose McGowan
hmm
um,
Well, how do you think
as a
she felt?
person.
Mhm.
Like, I think she's batshit crazy. I think
Oh
she's
no.
unhinged, which is good because an actor is supposed to have you not think of them as a person. They're supposed to have you
hmm
think of them as a character. So I
Yeah.
think, you know, things that I've seen her in, I've enjoyed her acting. Now, Tatum, I think, was a great best friend for
Mm,
Sydney. I found Tatum to be more interesting than Sydney.
mm. Yeah,
Um,
that's. I have a theory on that.
yeah, I was like, and like she was spunky, and she also was like, you're not gonna kill me so quickly. Like she was throwing bottles, like she got
hmm
sliced in the arm and was still throwing bottles and
hmm
was still like doing some stunt work to try to get out of the situation. So
Bruh.
and she's like, don't kill me. I want to be in the sequel. Like she was witty and
hmm
she was sharp, no pun intended. So she
Yeah.
was definitely my favorite character. I mean, I'm also partial to blondes. I mean, that was a
Hmm.
horrible dye job in my opinion. Hey, Tatum was my favorite character of the film.
Okay, so I won't be beating the allegations anytime soon. I absolutely loved Matthew Lillard.
Okay.
I there's something about a villain that gets me, and
I
for
know, I know.
him, I think it's that this performance reminded me so much of his performance in Hackers, and being a young queer kid, Clueless was like my absolute one of my top favorite films.
Right.
And looking back, he feels like he would have fit easily in that world. Like I know
Definitely.
I do a lot of like what universe is this, but whatever. But I truly feel like he would be the glue that could connect Clueless and Scream. Just he to me, out of everybody in the film, him and Tatum, but him specifically because he's my favorite, felt like
Right.
a '90s character, like this '90s
Definitely.
caricature of like zany ass youth, maybe white youth, but still zany ass '90s youth. And
Right.
and him and Skeet with this homosexual
Oh,
relationship.
very much so.
I,
Homosexual.
I'm like, I can't. How do you? If we put aside the murder for a second, just for a second,
Right.
I was like, okay, these niggas is nice. I'm with that, and with there being no black people except for that reporter in the movie, I feel confident in saying that. Yeah, he was my favorite.
Okay.
Even more than Sydney, like you said, my theory about Sydney is that she walks so Bella could run. She feels like Bella from Twilight. Like she just
I can see it.
maybe a little bit more personality, but it feels like that's the same character. Like that's who Kristen was should have emulated. She, outside of being like afraid and shocked, I don't think she gave a whole lot of, well, it wasn't a lot of happy scenes, but she was sad and depressed this whole movie. Rightfully so. Your mother was murdered a year ago, but like, Lord,
Yeah.
I, I don't know. And there's nothing against it. I enjoyed the movie. Nev did what she needed to do. Um, I remember watching this, and I was never one of the party of five gays. That was never my ministry. But I
Nope,
remember
me either.
watch. It was so boring. I was like, "What the hell are these five orphans?" I don't even know what it's about. Um, but I remember watching an episode after this movie came out, and I
Mhm.
remember it so vividly because Nev Campbell's character was a waitress in a bar, and I don't know verbatim what was said, but I know she was carrying something. I think a glass broke or somebody broke something in front of her to scare her, and they made mention of the movie Scream in so many words. And I was like, I
Okay.
see what y'all are doing.
They did. I
And
remember them doing that a lot in the 90s. Yeah.
that's the only thing that. Okay, sidebar to the sidebar. Did you watch Passions when it came out?
I I wouldn't regularly tune in, but if it were on, I wouldn't turn the channel.
So two things Passion did that I think may have influenced like the way I write and consume media and whatnot.
Mhm.
One, it started off with after Princess Diana's death, and the main I think Sheridan Crane was the first person we were introduced to, or one of the first, and
Mhm.
she was an analog to Diana, and they very clearly stated in continuity in the first couple episodes how she was a friend of Diana's, and like the police were chasing her or something. She was like, "Oh, they're chasing me into this tunnel just like Diana." And I remember being a kid being like, I don't know that this is how you need to start a show, but I
Right.
remember that very vividly, like real world influencing like the shit going on in the show. And they also did, damn, what was the other one? Oh, when Desperate Housewives was on, and what's the face was sleeping with the yard boy, the garden
Yeah.
nigga. I remember an episode of Passions where Sheridan, I think, was on a computer. No, some evil white lady with blonde hair was like on a computer looking for Miguel's character in Passions, and they're like, "Oh, it looks like he's on Wisteria Lane, and he's working as a gardener." And I was like, "Okay, I don't mind this," but that's the first thing that comes to mind. But yeah, so I digress. So moving on. With Scream, we have our favorite characters and our favorite kill. Was the killing, did this all, was it campy? Like, was it over the top for you? Did it make sense within the movie, within the universe that they created? Did you have anything like, nigga, this is weird? This doesn't fit like any of those
So
moments.
I okay. Let me unbox it and unpack it a little bit. So I never once thought it was campy. Like I didn't think
Hmm.
it was campy. I thought it was fresh. Now I remember watching it and I just kept saying, I'm like, it ain't nobody black. Y'all don't have no black friends. Ain't no black students at
Hey.
this school when they were having shots in the school. Like I remember the scene where the girls were talking about Sydney and she was in the stall, and I'm thinking, you really couldn't have put a Latina or a sister
Hey.
as even thrown her in there, and it had been three of them, and or just make the two girls one black Latina and one black. I'm just like that kind of irked me, but I'm like, I'm not gonna be too mad because the majority of people getting killed, and
No,
I
yeah.
don't really want to see anybody black on film, getting hacked up. So I
Yeah.
was kind of on the fence about that. But as far as unrealistic, I'm like, this is very plausible because if
Mm-hmm.
I'm not mistaken,
Come on, speak on it.
some of this script
Mm-hmm.
was influenced by real events.
Yep, the
If I'm not
Gainesville
mistaken.
Ripper. Yep, Scream was influenced by Williamson's passion for horror films, and it was inspired by the real life case of the Gainesville Ripper.
Yeah.
The screenplay, originally titled Scary Movie, funny enough, was brought by Diamondson Films and was retitled by the Weinstein brothers just before filming was complete. The production faced censorship issues with the Motion Picture Association of America and obstacles from locals while filming on location, which, well, no. I was gonna say I guess I could see, but can fuck about that. It's a goddamn movie. But yeah, so it was based off of the Gainesville Ripper, which is I don't want to say his name, but you can look him up. But he was an American serial killer. He murdered 5 students in Gainesville, Florida, over 4 days in August of 1990. He confessed to sexually assaulting several of his victims, also committing a triple homicide in his home city of Shreveport, Louisiana. So, yeah, it was very nasty work. So there's that. I I thought it was believable. For me, my biggest issue, and they addressed it in the movie though. Well, one of them. My first one that they did address was how in the fuck we in this little ass town and nobody can find this mask. You're like, oh, I think Dewey mentioned that this Ghostface Ripper mask is sold in every mom and pop store in a 5 mile radius or something like that. So I was like, okay.
Right.
The other thing is, how are we not checking that mask for DNA? I was like, I know it's the 90s, the early 90s, but we had some DNA databases back then. But
We
like,
did.
that's
Especially,
true
I mean,
time.
especially because from my vantage point, Woodsboro was. I mean, those houses were big. Like
Yes.
y'all have money, so y'all
Mm-hmm.
have the resources to fund those type of programs. But I digress.
Hey, look, you and me both. We on the same page. But I was like, this is odd. But like, besides that, and like Tatum's death, I don't recall too many things that truly pulled me out of the movie. So I'm not. I ain't gonna be too upset about that. Um, is this a cult classic? Do you consider Scream One a cult classic film?
So I'm going to. So I have a layered
Come on.
response to you. So at that time, yes, it
Mm-hmm.
was a cult classic. Um, but that was very short lived because to me, cult classic is like a movie where a lot of people like it, but it didn't do big numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, by the time, and again, remember the second one came out less than a calendar year later. By the time the second one came out, Scream was a full-fledged phenomenon. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so initially, yes, it was a cult classic, but it shifted to being a part of pop culture in a huge way. Like, I remember that was my first or my first realization of things being leaked on the internet. Like, I remember the whole ordeal with Scream 2 and it possibly being leaked on the internet. I didn't even think to put that in perspective in 1997 that, oh my God, these things can be leaked
Mm-hmm.
on the internet. My 14-year-old brain didn't process that. Like, yes,
Yeah.
I knew the internet was for like, research and work. It's not work stuff, but school stuff. And I just left
Mm-hmm.
it there. But yeah, I want to say initially, I feel like it was a cult classic, but it's gotten so much acclaim and it's gotten so much exposure that can we really still call it a cult classic? Because
Right.
so many demographics like it. Like
Mm-hmm.
the whites like it, the gays like it, niggas like it. Foreigners like it. Everybody likes it.
Mm-hmm. So tell me this then. What do you think makes this movie, or if anything, so different from, let's say, a Fast and the Furious or a Saw? Like outside of subject matter, like it being about family and cars and all that shit. Like, because if we're
Mhm.
looking at franchises, I personally feel like Scream has and still can go the distance. But
I
then when
agree.
you get something like a Fast and Furious and a Saw, it's like, okay, at some point Fast and the Furious has turned into Avengers. So what do you think maybe makes Scream and the franchise at large sustainable for the fans and for people versus these other franchises?
I think one thing is the realization and the meta piece. I think that it's just enough meta that it's smart without, of course, there are some entries in the franchise that are like, it's too meta,
Mm-hmm.
but for the most part, people like that. It's sharp. Yeah, I think that, and then people love gore and horror. Like, I,
Mm-hmm.
I don't particularly like. It's so funny because I always say I don't like gore and I don't like horror, but
Mm-hmm.
I've seen every Scream movie. I'm just like, I don't. I think that's universal,
Mm-hmm.
and it for the most part, the casting, it's always those fresh, hot names at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and no matter what generation it is, because we've seen this over generations, those heartthrobs and those teen idols bring in seats, bring in
Mm-hmm.
tickets.
Yeah.
And I think that'll always be the case because, you know, at that time, Nev Campbell, Courtney Cox, Matthew Lillard, Skeet Ulrich were on fire.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
they were there, and then they upped the ante with the sequel. We had Jada Pinkett, we had Omar Epps, we had Sarah Michelle Gellar,
Mm-hmm.
we had Rebecca Gayheart, and those brought in. And then with the next generation, because that generation kind of grew up and out of that, you
Mm-hmm.
had your Emma Roberts, you had your Hayden Panettiere, and people were like, okay, these are the new heartthrobs. Let's see them in the mix because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like Scream is one of those franchises and one of those properties that, like you said, it's always going to be around and you can always play with it and
Yeah.
remix it because it's not anyone can assume
Come on.
the character or the persona of Ghostface and go on with
Mm-hmm.
their regular day-to-day lives. And because in that universe, Sidney Prescott is a real person in these events, and everyone knows about things because of the books and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy to tie it back to the original story. So with that, it just allows the spider webbing of storytelling. That's just my opinion, and that's why I think that it works, and it's worked in the different iterations, whether it's been the movie or even the television show.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. For me, I think it's a lot of it is rooted in the 90s. Um, there was a line that someone said, I think it was the sheriff, where he said, "What are you doing with a cellular phone, son?" And I was like, you know
Right,
what? This is again something you cannot recreate. I mean, you can we have the next installments, but this already laid the groundwork. You're not going to get now you can get a Scream equivalent now, but you won't get Scream
right,
one now. Like having one working at a movie rental place, two having cellular phones be this brand new spanking thing, having a VHS player, the
right. Caller
fashions,
ID.
look that too, and being able to like disguise your voice because so many of the things that make Scream what it is now available at our fingertips. Like I'm sure download an app to change my voice.
Right,
So though that is terrifying, it's very different from being in the 90s. Somebody cut your phone cord and then you got to walk to the next payphone or whatever. Like
right,
it doesn't have that same level of I think like nostalgic fear. And that's to say the subsequent Screams that came after that were built on a solid foundation of this Scream. So now that we do have technology advancing and whatnot, you don't have to use that as a crutch. We don't have to pretend there's no cell phones. You can just have them, but
right,
alter the story. And much to your point, having these new fresh faces come in. And another thing I think makes this so stellar is that with the rise of true crime podcasts, true crime appreciation, and true crime shows, having a consistent murder mystery in Scream every iteration is the fun of it. I
right.
remember when the last one, Scream 5, came out, I was in the theater and I want to say I was texting you and I may have been texting Ivy from the Ivy's podcast as well. But
Mhm.
the fun for me was figuring out who the killers were.
Right,
And so I don't know. Like you go to different movies for different things. You go for the action, fun adventure for the Fast and the Furious, and then you go for the horror element of Saw. So I'm not to say that those aren't good franchises, but I personally feel like Scream surpasses them with its
I agree.
longevity. hmm So,
No, I definitely agree. I
oh, man.
will say with Scream 5, I guessed one of the killers. I was like, oh, it's got to be her.
Yeah.
I was right. I was wrong on the second one because I was like, Okay, I was definitely
Mm.
wrong.
See, I was right, and I feel so vindicated as if somebody questioned me. This is all self-imposed, but I felt so good because I, growing up, my mom would like watch the Food Network and HGTV, and so I got
Mhm.
accustomed to that type of programming, and then we shifted to add in true crime to it. And being a storyteller, someone who writes books and novels and explores my own personal stories because I have to build them from the ground up and also
Right.
consume stories of other people, I have gotten to a point where I can recognize patterns. And this is getting ahead of myself as far as the Scream Suite is concerned because I'll go over it in episode 5. But the killer in 5, I knew exactly who he was, not because of Scream, but because I had seen him in other properties. And one thing that you want to do if you want to invoke a certain feeling in your film is to cast an actor who invokes that feeling. So for me, let's say I want you to think, it's the 90s and I want you to think sex, luxury, um I may cast a Naomi Campbell in a role or a
Right.
Michelle Pfeiffer. I'm going to cast someone who the public zeitgeist already has a particular feeling about, so that when I flip it and now Naomi or Michelle are actually killers who are poor and have been faking like they got money, it's not going to be 100% unfeasible, but it is going to kind of take you aback versus me casting just regular plain person to play a con artist. So
Right.
I guessed that nigga and I was like, yes, yes, I knew it. So there's that. There's my a win is a win. So shit. So so with Scream, do you think it's a good movie? Now, when I say good movie, not like did you enjoy it? I mean, technically, looking at the film, beginning, middle, and end, do you feel like this is a solid movie that has no plot holes, that doesn't have questions left unanswered, that gave us a full, satisfying story? So, for those of you out there who listen and answer this as well, but do you think Scream is technically a good movie?
I think it is a good movie. I feel like even the great movies
Mm-hmm.
have plot holes.
Yeah,
Like I would have loved to have seen a flashback of the original City Girl, Maureen Prescott,
boy.
busting it wide for half of Woodsboro and adjacent towns. But I digress. I would love either a flashback in another movie or even a prequel to the franchise. I'm just saying that's just to me. I think that would be
Yeah.
interesting.
No, I'm with you.
No, but I think the acting was good. I think the story was strong. The cinematography, like the little Easter eggs and little nuances. I think it was definitely a great movie.
That's what's up. No, I agree. I agree. I thought it was damn good, and there's not too many things that I can look back on and be like, this is terrible. But to your point, I do think that Scream. Now, I'm one who loves. I love me a good reboot. I love me when done well. I love me a good prequel. I love all that. I don't think it's needed everywhere, but I do think that for this particular franchise, you could do a prequel movie, and I think that would make a whole lot of sense. Considering,
Right.
like you said, let's get into all of the things we've seen in the entire franchise and sow those Easter eggs into a good, solid, well done period piece of like what was this? This came out in '96, so that will put us at about maybe 84, 83, 84 when her mom, because what was Sydney like 17
Yeah, she was
ish?
17 in 96.
Yeah, so I would say yeah, because they alluded to her being the whore of Babylon, whatever. So I would like to see that because
Mhm.
with a good woman led creative team, give us Maureen and the pussy popping on a handstand. Let's see what that was really about. So,
Right.
oh Lord, man, yeah, this I like it. I like it. I think it's good. So jumping very far ahead, we've seen the trailer for Scream 6. Do you and this is based strictly off the trailer, do you think that we've already seen the killer in the trailer?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't, and I think that was intentionally done.
Mm, see, I'm thinking it's Hayden. Thinking it's Hayden. We had a back and forth about that, but I think
I
it's the
can see
Bob.
it.
I think it's the Bob. But no,
The Bob is
I,
murderous. The Bob is definitely murderous.
I I I like her very SVU Benson look, but I'm like,
Yeah,
I don't know, sis. And that's another one I feel like she has such a good girl image, and not just from like, oh, I'm just a beautiful blonde white woman, but like literally from Heroes, really from all of her roles. I feel like if she's the killer, it's gonna make sense. But I don't know.
I can see it. I don't think so, but I would. I let me just say this: if that is the reveal, or she had a hand in everything, I would not be surprised. But I
Look,
just don't
I'm
think
with
she
it.
is.
I'm with it. I'm are you satisfied with the quality of films? Like I know you said 3 and 4 weren't your favorite, but do you feel like they, I guess even taking them off the board or even including them overall 1 through 5, do you think that the quality has kind of remained? Do you feel optimistic
I
about 6?
think I think for the most part it has. And the only reason that 3 really kind of shifted in tone and it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't as horror and it was more satire was, remember, this was the 90s. So it came
Mm-hmm.
out in 2000, but it was filmed in the 90s and the
Mm-hmm.
screenplay was probably written in the 90s, or but we just had Columbine in
Mm.
99, and
Yeah.
that was a major thing. So I think that at that time a lot of studios were like, you know what, let's not be in let's be sensitive and let's not be leaning so far into the horror, or the graphic violence
Mm-hmm.
on younger people, because
No,
the
yeah.
like that was the news cycle for the longest time.
Lord, yes. No, you're
But
absolutely right.
I think even Scream 3 was delayed because of Columbine, with the production and kind of putting a pause in how we gonna give this film and have it be true to the franchise, but not be as graphic and as gory.
I could see that. Yeah, because this only like gun violence, violence against children and marginalized people in this country has been all too common. It's woven in the
Right.
fabric of our DNA in this country. But like, yeah, I could definitely see that taking a pause. Do you feel like a Scream 3, like the hesitation that they had of making such a gory film killing kids when it originally came out, do you feel like it could be made today?
I think it could be made today. I
Yeah.
think it could definitely be made today. I even think if you were pushing out 1 and 2 so quickly,
Mm-hmm.
if they would have done 3 a year early or two
Mm-hmm.
years early, it could have probably held up better,
Mm.
instead of waiting 3 years or two and a
Yeah,
half years, 3 years. So
I could see that. I think I'd say yes for that as well, but also for the fact that there's always a mass shooting or something here. Like
right, like every
it's
day,
so
it's
look,
something. Somebody's getting shot. Somebody's being kidnapped. Somebody's being trafficked. It's just
yeah. So I don't think they would. Well, with the 24-hour news cycle, with the internet being at our fingertips, and hell, just with Twitter alone, I doubt that there would be any hesitation to consider the children and not make that movie nowadays. It's just like, well, whatever,
right.
throw it up on the streaming site or get folks in the theaters and whatever else. But I don't think there would be a hesitation to make, because hell, when the pandemic started, we got like what 40 different pandemic movies.
We
um
did.
and in the book world, there's like a whole there was a series called, I think, Quarantine Love. It was like 3 or 4 books of like just quarantine related romance stories. I'm like,
Oh wow.
I don't want this shit in my media. Like, but yeah, so I don't think there would be any hesitation to create something as gory, if not worse. A few things in. So this says, and I'm going to refute this. They may be right, but there's it's listed on IMDb that at around the 34-minute mark, when Gail is attempting to enter the police station with Kenny, the cameraman, she is stopped by a police officer, and you can hear her saying, "Hey, watch the hand. Do you know who you're dealing with?" But they say that her mouth is never moving. I rewound that scene 2 or 3 times, and the
Uh-huh.
angle at which you see her, now they could be right, but it's like, that angle where you see like the person's cheek, you don't really see their lips. Like it was from
Right.
behind. So I was like, but I mean, I could believe it. A lot of those lines sounded like they went back and re-recorded them after the fact. So
Right. Right. Right.
I'm sure, but they didn't really feel like that was true to me. Something else in continuity, they say at around the 1 hour and 7 minute mark, when Tatum throws the beer bottles at the killer in the garage, they break and wet his costume. But when the killer runs away and falls over, his costume is suddenly dry.
Yeah.
That is a continuity error, but I feel like for this movie, that that wouldn't bother me because it's
Not at
already,
all.
yeah, like and the outfit is black. Now if he had like a gray or a blue or something where you can see stains, then maybe but whatever. Um Around the 1 hour and 13 minute mark, when Randy and friends are watching horror movies, Randy says she always outsmarted the killer during the big chase scene. Virgins always do that. However, when Kenny and Gail watch the football on their hidden camera, the sentences have been shortened to the virgin always outsmarts the killer in the big scene. That's semantics. I'm not about to fault them over that.
Yeah. It's like,
Yeah, that's um there are a couple factual errors. They say the law enforcement officers that work for the Woodsboro Police Department are designated as deputies. If it's called the Woodsboro Police Department, they should be designated as police officers. They're
right.
called deputies. It should be called Woodsboro Sheriff's Department. Okay, well, that's that. Around 1 hour and 27 minutes, when Sydney locks herself in Dewey's Jeep, the door locks are shown to be on top of the door panel, but are not shown on the outside view of the SUV. Also, the locks are designed next to the door handle, meaning the locks are shown from a different vehicle. Okay, well, there you go. A lot of these ain't really nothing. You guys can look them up, or I'll link them in the show notes. Is there anyone who you would like, and is anyone from any of the Scream movies, any franchise, anything at all? Is there anyone that you would like to see in, let's say, Scream 6 or Scream 7 or 8 or whatever? Is there someone you just, actor or character, you want to see in the Scream franchise?
I want to see Cat Graham. I want to.
Yeah.
I automatically want to see Cat Graham in everything. I would love to see Cat Graham in Scream in the future as someone that does not get murdered,
Right?
like make up a little bruise, but not getting killed, or even
Mhm.
shit, an accomplice to the killer or the killer. Like I would love
Hey,
to see Cat Graham in the franchise.
look, I'm with you there. I think Cat Grant. First of all, put her in everything. Put her in more stuff. But I
Exactly.
think she'd be nice in one of these. She would definitely fill out the
I
role.
wouldn't even be against her, being the face of another installment of Scream.
Okay, I was
I
going to
think, I
ask
think
that.
sh- because she's a good like not only is she a phenomenal actress, she's good looking and she's marketable and she's got a built-in
Absolutely.
fans.
On top of that, they seem to be skewing towards the POCs. After all this time, what I'm saying, we got Jenna. She may be a little lighter, but that's a POC right there. And funny thing though, thinking back on Scream 5, I'm always thinking that Jenna is the main character when she is not. Like her sister is the Sydney Prescott
Yeah.
of Scream 5. And I never and it's no disrespect to that actress. And this is even before Wednesday came out. Like when I saw Jenna on her character on You season 3,
Mm-hmm.
2, no, whichever one it was, I was automatic. Like she had the presence that I was like, okay, this ain't just some snot nosed little kid who's like,
It's not no little kid.
scamming this weird neighbor. Like she invited me in with her performance, and I became a fan. And so even now, when I think back on Scream 5, I always think of Jenna as the Sydney Prescott character, but she's not. I don't like that. I don't like that. So I don't know. Unless her and her sister are sharing that I don't know title, but she's not. She's more of the Drew Barrymore, but I survived as character. Um,
Barely.
yeah, bruh, that hospital scene.
Nigga,
What
I
are
remember
we
texting you
doing?
about that. Like, are you serious?
Yes.
Is this really like really? That to me, when you I can't wait for you to talk about part 5 because
Yeah,
I'm gonna be all in the comment section. Like, really? Like, to me, that was not believable. But
yeah. It was. Ugh. So, what is your favorite Scream installment so far? Because you've seen them all. Which one is your, no matter what, this is my all-time favorite?
it's a tie. One
Okay.
and two, one and
Mm,
two are it for me. One and two are definitely at the summit position of this
mm-hmm.
franchise.
Okay. I would have to say one for me, just because it's my gateway drug, and it's a comfort film. Like I know, it's I just love it, and also. I was a kid who watched Seinfeld, Mad About You, Friends,
Hmm.
Living Single, Martin. Like I watched a slew of network sitcoms,
Right.
and Courtney Cox. I enjoyed her character in Friends, not as much as other characters, but seeing her so regularly, and then when she was in this, and then she switched over to that tabloid show Dirt.
Yeah.
Like I something about her, and even Cougar Town, because I think I maybe watched maybe the first 2 seasons of that as well. She
Right.
to me was almost like a Julia Louis Dreyfus. Now she's, in my opinion, is superior to Courtney Cox, but they they're on this same list for me as a kid. Like, oh, I used to watch these women back in the day,
Hmm.
and so seeing her in this just helped to make her somebody I'd halfway give a damn about. Like if she was in something else tomorrow, be it a Marvel movie or a drama or whatever, I would be interested and I would watch it. So
Right.
yeah, that's that. So Scream one. What is your rating overall? If we're ranking it in the five that we already have, where you rank a Scream one?
So from 5 to 1,
Yeah.
1.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go.
It's definitely 1.
There we go. There we go. So yeah, this Scream, man. Again, y'all, if you haven't seen it, where have you been?
Right. It's like 25 years old.
Man, say like I'm
Oh,
sure
I
was
forgot.
someone
Some
born.
some of these kids weren't born yet. Never mind.
But that's the thing. Yeah, somebody may have been born on the day it came out. If your
Right.
birthday is the day Scream
Well,
One came out,
actually, I was born in 1998.
no, for real.
Well, fuck you. Okay.
Oh, but no, this has been the Scream Suite. This is, man, such a interesting franchise, and
Yes.
I I can't get enough of it. I'll just say that. Do you have any thoughts, comments, concerns, any, I don't know, predictions, anything with Scream One or the franchise as a whole?
I want more diversity. I want to see visibly darker skinned people
Hey.
in the franchise. The little beige meat twins, I get they're biracial, but being biracial is not a monolith. There are
Hmm.
so many different complexion types.
Yes.
I want to see I want to see Darnell and his sister and their friends. Like I want to see
Yes.
rich black characters,
Hmm.
in intermingled into the situation. I
Yeah.
understand that they're not necessarily going to be the leads, but just more representation.
No, I'm with you. I again going back to the gender comment. I think we're getting her and her sister in, and oh, forgive me for forgetting that girl's name, but I think that I'm hoping at least that they are planning for more and better representation as as the franchise continues.
Hopefully.
Um, because I feel like you have a fleshed out enough world that we don't have to limit ourselves to the through lines that are been stated explicitly in every film. Because I want you to go ahead and tell the folks who you wanted to see, who you mentioned, which black person you mentioned in a previous or in one of the installments, cameraman, who you wanted to see.
I would have loved to see because let's no, I'm not gonna be shady. I
Not.
would love to see Dwayne Martin reprise his role or come back because
Hmm.
he made it out alive. Like I would
Yeah.
love the realization that the Meeks kids are his
Hmm.
kids, and then he got Darnell and his sister with another woman. Because I feel like Dwayne Martin is from New York,
Mm.
So I would love to see that would be a great thread to pull
Mm-hmm.
to have him back in the fray. He's probably elevated and progressed in his field, and maybe he's a producer, or maybe he is, behind the scenes more so in television
Mm-hmm.
morning shows or nightly news shows or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
reuniting with Gail, and have him have an expanded role, or maybe his kids are the killer. I don't know. I would love
Mm-hmm.
to see something like that.
And that's exactly what I like about this franchise, is because I think it's my comic book nature, or my
Mm-hmm.
comic book obsession, because you can have, let's say, X-Men issue number 12 from 1963. There was a random character who like rung up the X-Men at a bodega and gave them their change. You can bring that motherfucker back and be like, I've been in the shadows following your career forever, and I want to be
Exactly.
just like you, or I want to kill you because your fight killed my mom. Like, the fact that you can do that and fans just accept it because like this is clearly canon, it happened. I like this idea of including diversity in Scream based off of those maybe minor interactions or characters from before. Because, like you said, you could very easily just say that he has kids and they're getting revenge because all this Scream shit. Though their father got out alive, he became a drunk and had anxiety issues and I don't know, killed somebody himself. Like, there's so
Right.
many different threads that you can pull from where, or you could just make up some shit, retcon something that makes the most sense with
Right.
one
Of
of
course.
these, shared universe ass films. So I don't know. I'm just a fan, y'all. My intentions are good. So, and I want to say that the actress name is Melissa Barrera, who
Right.
plays Sam Carpenter, and because I don't want to show no favoritism, but Jenna is my favorite. So that's that. Diversity, yes. Give us more. Okay, cool. So, do you have any closing thoughts about the franchise or anything Scream related?
I'm excited. I am curious to what this opening scene is going to be.
Hey, hey, you and me both, because you niggas is in New York now. You all the way on another coast.
Right.
What is that? If a motherfucker follow you to a whole nother, they want you gone, and
They want you out of here.
I want to know why. So yeah, I'm with that. So please let these folks know where they can follow you and support you.
You can follow me on Twitter at the John Effect X. You can follow me on Instagram, the John Effect, and I'm on TikTok,
Mhm.
trying to step out of my comfort zone. So I'm on the
Hey.
TikTok. I sound old. I'm on TikTok at the John Effect. So that's where I am. That's where I bees at. I bees in the trap. So
That's what's up. That's what's up. And those links will be in the show notes. So go ahead and give John a good follow, some interaction. You can find me, of course, Carefree Blurred on Twitter, Carefree Blurred on TikTok, Carefree Black Nerd on Instagram. And if you'd like to email me, do so at carefreeblacknerd@gmail.com. Please put the subject line something that alludes to what the email is about. I've gotten countless emails with no subject line or something that is wildly different than what's inside of the email itself. This has been the first installment of the Scream Suite. Please join me back here next week for the second installment. We're going to keep this thing going all the way through Scream 6 and, try to figure out who the killer is and what you liked about it. So, any questions that we've asked during this program, please make sure to answer those using the hashtag Scream Suite. That will be in the show notes as well. And until next time, y'all, stay carefree, stay nerdy, stay geeky, and stay the hell away from a motherfucker that is obsessed with both you and your mom, and also teach your dad how to defend himself. There's no way he should have been locked up for the entire weekend in the closet. Like, come on, y'all. If you're the Sidney Prescott of your movie, get it together, goddammit. Shit. And thanks again, John, for coming on and discussing this wild ass movie with me. I do appreciate it, man.
of course, anytime. Tag me in, coach. Tag
Bet
me
that.
in.
Bet that. I got you. And y'all have a good one.